and welcome to the Mill. I am your host, Dusty Crane, and this week I thought we would talk about the November 2019 Tapestry Civilization adjustments. Now, since Tapestry released, Jamie has been keeping record on StonemeyerGames.com of final scores. There's a form you can go out there and fill out what civilization mats were used, who won. Just it's a really quick survey, but the first adjustments that Jamie made are in. There are changes to half of the civilization mats, and so I just thought we'd go ahead and take a look at those, and we'll just run through them one at a time and see what we get here. So let's start with the Alchemist. The Alchemist, when starting the game, you gain any 2 resources. Now, if you do happen to pick up the Alchemist during the game from another benefit, you do not randomly gain those 2 resources. So that is a starting benefit only. All right. Moving on to the Architects. When starting the game with the Architects, if you have 3 or more total players, you gain 10 victory point per opponent. Now, again, this is another one that this is only a starting thing. If you end up getting the Architects during the game, you do not give yourself the additional 10 victory points per opponent. This one in particular, just remember, it's only if you have 3 or more opponents. So if you are starting a 3-player game, for example, you're going to give yourself 20 victory points. If you're starting a 5-player game, you're going to give yourself 40 victory points. But if you're just playing a 2-player game, then there's no difference at all. So that is the adjustment to the Architects. Let's move on to the Craftsmen. The Craftsmen, when starting the game, or if you gain it during the game, you lose any 1 resource if possible. So if you start with the Craftsmen, you choose the lost resource after your first income turn. So the Craftsmen, they're going to go ahead and lose one of their starting resources. Or if you pick them up midway through the game, you're going to go ahead and lose a resource if you're able to. The Entertainers have seen no balance changes this time around. The Futurists, when starting the game or gaining the Futurist starting benefit, lose 1 culture and any other 1 resource of your choice. Now, this one I'm going to assume that this is also an if possible situation. So if you end up picking up the Futurist mid-game and you only have 1 resource, I would say you just lose that 1 resource. If you happen to have a culture and a resource, then you lose that. If you have the ability to make choices other than culture, I would imagine you would still, let's say if you had 2 food, I think in keeping with the theme here, I think you'd go ahead and lose those 2 food. But in this particular case, if you're getting the Futurist right at the start of the game, you're going to go ahead and lose 1 culture and 1 resource of your choice. The Heralds, the adjustment on the Heralds is when starting the game or gaining them during gameplay, you lose 15 victory points. Thus, the Heralds will start the game with negative 15 victory points. This is one where I have seen it come up where someone has asked, well, how do we keep track of negative victory points? And I saw it recommended. The person I saw mention it was Josh Ward. I don't know if he's the first person who brought this up, but just go ahead and start at 85. And work your way back towards 0. Obviously, you don't move from 85 to the 100, or else that's a huge benefit, which is not at all what the Heralds are looking here. So if you're starting the game or gaining the Heralds, lose 15 victory points. And if you're starting with them, just go ahead and start on that 85 mark and work your way towards 0. It's probably the easiest way to keep track. The Historians have had no balance changes. The Inventors and the Isolationists likewise have had no balance changes, and either have the Leaders. The Merrymakers, however, though, when starting the game or gaining the Merrymakers, gain any 1 resource. So, just more party fodder for your Merrymakers there. So whether you get it right at the start of the game or during the gameplay, gain 1 resource of your choice. The Militants have seen no balance changes this time. Neither have the Mystics and the Nomads. Those 2 civilizations are presently fine as is. The final 2, the Chosen, when starting the game with the Chosen, gain 15 victory points per opponent. The Chosen is a mat that cannot be gained during the game, so when starting the game with the Chosen, just go ahead and give yourself 15 victory points per opponent. That's regardless of how many people in your game, so it's not quite like the Architects where it's situational on seat count, just however many people you're facing. 15 victory points. I would say if you're playing the Automa and you're using the Shadow Empire as well, go ahead and give yourself plus 30 to begin with, because you're playing against the Automa, you're playing against the Shadow Empire. Finally, the Traders. When starting the game with the Traders, gain any 2 resources, but this is only a starting benefit. If you happen to pick up the Traders during the game, just play on like you would otherwise when you pick up a new mat. So those are the Tapestry Civilization adjustments for November 2019. Again, just a real quick overview. The Alchemists, the Architects, the Craftsmen, the Futurists, the Heralds, the Merrymakers, the Chosen, and the Traders all have new adjustments for their civilizations, whereas the Entertainers, the Historians, the Inventors, the Isolationists, the Leaders, the Militants, the Mystics, and the Nomads are currently fine as is. However, Jamie knew that this was going to be part of the process, that this would grow or adjust and expand as more gameplays are recorded. So make sure you get out to Stonemaier Games website and log your plays. I know there's another Google form out there that just takes in a ton of information, and that's great too if you want to contribute there. But please, at the very least, go out to Stonemaier Games and record those so that we can know whether or not these adjustments are making the difference that we're hoping to make, or that Jamie and Stonemaier are hoping to make. And, let's go ahead and get this thing tightly honed in and, pretty much an even playing field for everybody. I would guess that this is probably not the last, but I mean, hey, maybe some people can, get it right just the second shot at it. So I think it is to be expected that we'll see these continuing to come out as more and more games are recorded, and I think that's a positive. I will go ahead and put a link to the form out on the show notes here, and I'll post it here, a picture of it on the screen. And yeah, if you have any questions about the Tapestry November 2019 civilization adjustments, go ahead and drop those in the comments. And that is all I have for you this week. I hope you guys had a great Thanksgiving holiday if you celebrated. And if you don't, I hope it's just been a good week for you. Maybe with the U.S. having a couple of days down from a business perspective, maybe it was a little slow for you, or maybe you work a job where this time of year just cranks it up. In any case, I hope you're taking time to take care of yourselves and each other. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next week. Bye.